So 80 red cards in one game. What am I going on about? I'm going on about World Rugby trying to eradicate the head-on-head contact through sanctions. Now, apologies if my voice is a bit funny today. I've been ill recently, but I wanted to get into this because I think World Rugby are going about this all wrong. And the real culprit is the fact that players are being coached to tackle bolt upright. As one of their selections of tackle, I'm not saying it's the only tackle, but I did say in one video, I want to count one time how many of these bolt upright tackles players are choosing to do. And we'll come back to that word choosing in a bit. So I chose South Africa versus Ireland because it was a high level game, both sides incredibly physical, both sides doing a lot of defending. So I wanted to have a look at them, not particularly because it was South Africa or Ireland, just because it was a top level game and I thought a good example. So anyway, again, I am not saying what should be done. I'm not saying what law should be brought into place. I'm just saying what is and why so many people are ignoring it. It's baffling me. It's one of those ones where you're seeing something and just wondering why no one's talking about it or why not many people are talking about it. But let me know if you think you agree with me or you think I'm barking up the wrong tree. Anyway, let's get into it. High tackles. Why do players, or why do I say that players select to tackle high? So why do rugby coaches tell players to stay on their feet in a tackle? Why? Because there's plenty of tactical benefits from choosing this type of tackle in certain situations. In rugby union, when you're on your feet, you're in the game. When you're off your feet, you're out of the game. You can't do anything until you're back on your feet. So if a tackler can make a tackle and stay on their feet, then you've literally got an extra person in the defensive line. They can then do something else. They can rip the ball. They can stop the offload. They can release and then go for the jackal. There's some choices they can make. Now, obviously, if you stay upright, you're increasing the risk that you are going to go high with your shoulders. And what we're seeing quite a lot now is players actually electing to go bolt upright, head dead upright, and literally wrap up the player. Players are so physically strong now, they're so good in the gym, they can actually stop a player by literally staying upright and not dipping at all. So let's go back to the point that players will do as they're coached to do. Especially at a high level. I mean, in a World Cup, are you not going to do what a coach tells you to do if you want to play in the game in the World Cup? Of course you are, or at least try to. So when players are making different tackles, they're doing it because they've practiced different types of tackles. Yes, they have practiced low tackles. When coaches say we've practiced low tackles, we're really looking at low tackles. Of course there are. There's lots of low tackles in the game. You know, the chop tackle going down really low. Some may say that's really dangerous as well, but they practice that. The dominant tackle maybe around the waist area where you get your back dead straight and you power through them, try and stop them or knock them back. They practice that. And they also practice a variety of upright tackles. Maybe they target the ball, maybe they go for a rip, maybe they stand bolt upright and try and wrap up the tackle, stop the offload, wait for extra defenders to come if they're a bit smaller, say. They practice all of these things. So what I did in the South Africa-Ireland game is I only counted the most obvious bolt upright tackles, where tacklers had plenty of time to choose their tackle and they chose to stand completely upright, not even dip, with their heads at the head height of the ball carrier, if they didn't dip of course, and those are the ones I was counting, and these are the results. It was 30 stand-up tackles to South Africa and 50 to Ireland. So these aren't percentages. Obviously some teams would have defended more than others. I think Ireland defended more in that game, but I'm more looking at the total in the game, which is of course 80. So 80 times those top level players chose not to dip at all and stand bolt upright. And of course the big point is that is 80 times the tackler has deliberately put their head in a position whereby pure chance they could have a head-on-head collision. They're of course not trying to do a head-on-head collision, but when you put your head at the same level as the ball carrier, it's going to happen sometimes. So if one of those players had been red carded, it wouldn't have been bad discipline. It wouldn't have been a crazy choice at the time by the tackler. It would have been just by pure bad luck. They were doing exactly as they were told to do. And that is what is not being said by World Rugby, and that's not what I'm hearing. Now, talking about this game, to be fair, most of the tackles were actually massive dominant tackles, definitely bent at the waist, straight backs, knocking the players back. Indeed, South Africa racked up a load of dominant tackles, 31 in that game, and at 65 minutes a graphic came up, they were 25-5 ahead of Ireland in the dominant tackle. So South Africa definitely weren't targeting those upright tackles all the time, far from it, but 30 times they absolutely chose to, and 50 times Ireland absolutely chose to. I mean, Ireland were the inventors of the choke tackle, and now Everyone does it. It's not just Ireland or South Africa. That's not what I'm saying. Now, sure, I noticed certain players actually chose to do the upright tackle more than others, which was interesting. Caelan Doris was one of them. He definitely went upright a lot with his head sticking straight up. Could easily have been a red card by pure chance. Damian Diolande, a number of times he selected the upright tackle because he's so strong he could just absorb the tackle, but his head was right at the head height of the ball carrier. Now, there was one player, though, that stood right out with the majority of their tackles as upright tackles. Who was it? It was Johnny Sexton. I'm not dissing anyone here. They're doing what they're told to do. So I'm not trying to single out any player saying, oh, look at them, they are making bad decisions. They're not. It's just one of the techniques that Johnny Sexton was taught. He's found it to be effective, so he does it. A number of 10s do this. They wrap up and kind of wait for help to come, and often it does, rather than go for the dominant tackle and maybe get smashed out of the way or hurt. Anyway, like I said at the beginning, I am not singling out Johnny Sexton at all. Every nation does it. Indeed, I noticed in the England-Chile game, England were going for loads of upright tackles, particularly to try and rip the ball away from Chile. I think they noticed they didn't carry the ball particularly well, and they were going for rips all the time with those heads bolt upright, a clear, chosen tactic. Now, if this is so clearly obvious just to someone rewatching the game and counting these tackles, why oh why have World Rugby gone down a different route? One route is, if someone gets a red card, they give the option of sending a player to tackle school. The most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Players do exactly what they're being taught. If they go to tackle school and get told, oh, you're not meant to stand upright in the tackle, do they go, oh, oopsie poopsie, I didn't realise, I've just been deliberately getting it wrong all this time? No, it's an absurdity. Whoever thought of that is just ridiculous. You should sack them straight away. It's the most ridiculous idea you've ever heard. Maybe they haven't played rugby or watched it. I don't know. Now, the other way is, of course, by sanctioning it. Yellow and red cards again and again and again. And they have been going up. We've seen a lot in this World Cup already. But what we've seen, they've been doing this for a while, it doesn't tip the balance. The effectiveness of that upright tackle is so strong, it is worth risking it. So World Rugby now are at a bit of a loss. What do? Well, the only thing they can do, and that's actually address the real problem. Now, I am not saying this is what they should do, whether it's good for rugby. I'm just saying what is and what they have to do if they want to get rid of this head-on-head tackle, and that is to get rid of the upright tackle. And the only way you do that is to ban coaches from coaching that technique. That technique is illegal. If a player has deliberately chosen to stand up in the tackle, that is evidence that it is being coached. Because as I said, these players try to do what they are coached to do. It is not hard. If you've played for any team at a decent level, you will try to do what you are coached to do, or you don't play. It's very, very simple. I don't know why they keep saying, oh, these teams are indisciplined, or these teams make really bad mistakes. 99% of the time they know exactly what they are doing, so I don't know why World Rugby don't know that. So to finish up with, an outright ban on this technique I think definitely would reduce head-on-head collisions, but would it reduce head injuries by the tackler going lower? I'm not so sure. We'll have to find out, of course, if it ever happens. Now, defensive coaches won't just give this up out of free will because they're stopping offloads, they're getting rips, they're holding up tacklers, getting more turnovers. So you'd have to ban it. There would be a bit of an uproar, but if you want to get rid of head-on-head collisions, that's the way to go. But would that reduce head injuries? That's another question. Getting the tackler to go lower, we're not so sure. It'll be interesting to see. So I'm not saying what should be done, just what is happening. And if World Rugby want to get rid of these head-on-head collisions, they have to get rid of the stand-up tackle. Because are players really being indisciplined 80 times in one game? Are they making mistakes 80 times in one game? No. Maybe they're just doing exactly what they're being coached to do.